Welcome to our open book. Very good to be with you. Either Karen Smith, Sarah O'Brien, Marianne Baumgartner, Dorothy Joy, a philosopher has joined us. Either Diane Wood, Mr. Dickens, Rhonda Phyllis, Diana, Anthony R. De Palma, John Mahoney. Very good to see everybody here. We're reopening. I just noticed today we're reopening Neil Simon's, hi there, Carla Atkinson's memoirs. The section is called Little Caesar. And it concerns the really great comic talent and really figure from comic history, Sid Caesar. It was in the show for which Neil Simon was writing the book, Little Me, a musical, and he was playing 7 roles. Let me just say, we opened in Philadelphia, Neil Simon says, to great critical reviews, but somehow we all knew better. A couple of numbers didn't work, and although the audience laughed more than we anticipated, there was still a feeling of emptiness. As I walked along the street with Cy Feuer, the director, the next morning, suddenly broke into laughter. He said, "I've never been in this position before. We have a smash hit, and I'm thinking maybe we should close it." Hi there, Lori. Let me go ahead a little. Now remember, Neil Simon had worked with and for Sid Caesar on your show of shows. And it was Neil who suggested that Sid Caesar play all those roles. Sid Caesar, as brilliant a comedian as I've ever met, had trouble learning his lines. He never stuck to them on our television shows, but always covered them with something just as funny. The stage was another matter. There, discipline reigns. One of the 7 characters Sid played in Little Me was Noble Eggleston, the richest, most talented, most brilliant, most liked, and handsomest boy in town, so brilliant he simultaneously went to Harvard and Yale, where he studied medicine and law, hoping one day to become a legal doctor. Forbidden by his society mother to marry Belle, who was from the other side of the tracks, he married a girl his mother picked out for him. As Noble said, "She and my mother are very happy." She and Noble meet years later aboard the Titanic while both are strolling the deck. Noble is now a surgeon and a judge. It's a foggy night, and the bighorns keep blasting through the scene. Belle says to Noble, "Do you think there's danger?" Noble says, "No, it's nothing, just a huge iceberg ahead." Then Belle, still in love with Noble, bursts out pleadingly, "Oh, Noble, isn't there some way we can keep on seeing each other?" Noble answers, and this would be Neil Simon's lines after all, "What do you want to do? Sneak around back alleys, checking into cheap hotels, lying to our family and friends?" She says, "No, of course." He answers, "Well, it was just a suggestion." It was one of the biggest laughs of the night. But at one performance in Philadelphia, after Bell said, "Of course not," Sid replied, "Well, it was just a situation." Hi there, Paul Izzo. No laugh, obviously. When I went backstage to see Sid, he asked me why that line didn't get a laugh tonight. I told him, "You didn't say it was just a suggestion. You said it was just a situation." He looked at me bewildered and said, "What's the difference?" Didn't seem to be wise to correct Sid because he looked as though he was about to get one of his Wolfman headaches. "I always followed the dictum," writes Neil Simon, "let sleeping large, angry comedians lie." As I left, Cy Feuer entered the dressing room, and I heard him say, "Sid, I just have a couple of notes for you. Nothing big." Cy didn't know how big nothing big could be. "I thought it was just a good show tonight, Sid," Cy began, "just a little slow." Sid looked up at him through his dressing room mirror. The red flag had just been waved in front of his horns. Sid rarely attacked with anger. Sid just sarcastics you to death. I could hear him through the door. He was very polite. A little slow. Really? You mean a little slow? Slower like a turtle slow? Or was it really slow like a glacier slow? If you want, I could speed it up a little. I could make it so fast the audience doesn't even have to come in. They could just go to the box office, buy their tickets, and go home. Show me how slow it was, Si. I'm young. I could sit here till I'm 67. I'm in no hurry. Si knew his head was in the noose, and he slipped out carefully, laughing good-naturedly at Sid and said, "Forget it. Nothing important. See you tomorrow. Get a good night's sleep." Sid said, "A slow sleep or a fast sleep? I've got all kinds of sleep. You come up, watch me, and pick out the one you like." Wow. Si was gone before he could yell taxi. Sid walked back to the hotel with his personal manager. Always at his side, Sid kept murmuring, "Too slow, huh?" He did it in 10 different languages and 20 different dialects. When they got to Sid's suite, Sid calmly went into the bathroom, put his huge, strong hands on both sides of the sink, yanked it out of the wall, and threw the sink into the bathtub. Then turned to his manager and said, "Ask Si if that's fast enough." Neil Simon writes, "Sid had a certain kind of logic, but you didn't always want to be in the same room when he expressed it." Now here's an important showbiz lesson coming up. Show played 7 weeks in Philadelphia, then went on to New York. Unlike Can Blow Your Horn, we arrived to a huge fanfare, thanks to the good press in Philly and the power of the Fuhrer and Martin name above the title. We had a double-page cover on Life magazine with 7 photos of Sid Caesar as the 7 characters he was playing in the show. We had a good advance sale, opening at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater. By now, Joan and Gwen Verdon, both pregnant. Joan was Neil's wife. Gwen Verdon, of course, then married to Bob Fosse. Or wait, was she married to Bob Fosse at that point? Well, I think she was. Both looked radiantly beautiful and happy. Fosse and I had grown to be close friends by now, enhanced by our moving into the same building where they lived in the penthouse at 69th Street and Central Park West. Bob was exactly 1 week older than I was. It became a running joke with us. I always kidded him about how much I looked up to him and hope I looked like him when I was his age. The reactions of the New York preview audience were mixed. One night, as I stood at the rear of the theater, the curtain went down at an intermission and 2 couples came up from opposite sides, apparently friends. The first couple said, "Isn't this the funniest thing you've ever seen? We think it's brilliant." The second couple said, "We hate it. We're leaving. Call you tomorrow." In a sense, writes Neil Simon, I thought they were both right. With a play or musical or comedy or drama, you lay down the ground rules to the audience in the first 10 minutes. Consistency is the keynote. The play can have twists and turns, surprises and jolts, but it can never deviate from the tone you establish from the beginning. It's inviolable to mix styles in a play, as it would be if the great French mime Marcel Marceau spoke just one single word in the entire evening. Just so, though we don't truly believe the Harpo Marx can't speak, we just accept his muteness because they made that a rule from the moment we first saw him. The audience makes a silent pact with you to dispel their belief for 2 hours plus. As long as you uphold your part of the bargain to tell your story with wit and style and truth and imagination. We know that the actor playing Peter Pan can't fly, but we accept that Peter Pan himself can fly. After all, didn't Tinker Bell tell us we must believe? Children and adults did what she asked. Little me had style trouble. We were both farcical and satirical at the same time. We told the audience that Noble and Bell really loved each other, but neither the writers nor the actors nor directors really believed it. We were asking the audience to accept what we ourselves were making fun of. It was a good joke. It's still a joke, and it's hard to maintain a joke for 2.25 hours, no matter how well it's told. We did have our admirers because they were willing to accept us on our terms, but those who like to believe in and care. The characters they were watching felt cheated. Very wise words coming from Neil Simon, aren't they? He says, I've always found audiences to be greedy, and they have a right to be. They don't demand perfection, but they do have to care, to be involved, to be moved, to be part of the experience. You can very often tell by the way an audience is dressed. Tuxedos and evening gowns are like a torpedo coming at you mid-ship. Those people would obviously be part of the big charity event, having paid a small fortune for their tickets and lavish chicken dinner that's preceded it. If there was a dinner, it follows that there were drinks. If there were drinks, it also follows that there will be drunks and latecomers, the worst being a drunken latecomer. This was the crowd that faced us at our crucial last preview in New York. The house was half filled as the overture started, 2/3 filled as the curtain went up, and the final 300 stragglers filed in, feeling for their seats in the half-darkened theater, all during the first scenes. Fosse, Cy Coleman, and I stood at the rear of the theater, knowing that it was going to be a long night. 15 minutes into the first act, a tuxedoed man got up from his aisle seat in the second row, bobbed, weaved, and staggered his drunken way up the aisle, stopping to say hello to all the people he'd never met in his life. Fosse took one look at him and said, if he doesn't throw up on anyone in the audience, I'd say we got off lucky. As he passed the three of us in search of the men's room, he screamed at the top of his voice, this is the worst piece of crap I've seen since My Fair Lady. Since that made no sense at all, we were rather flattered. Neil Simon writes, Little Me opened on Saturday night, November 17, 1962. John Chapman of the New York Daily News said, Little Me is inventive, funny, attractive, and expertly staged, but has little, if any, sentimental worth. Wow. That was it. Exactly as I feared. Laughs will get you just so far. Walter Kerr in the Herald Tribune wrote, the Enterprise breathes an atmosphere peculiarly located between mockery that means it with malice and mockery that it couldn't care less so long as it succeeds in figuring out the next blackout. Oh, Carlo, that's a wonderful story. All in all, Mr. Kerr enjoyed the show, but slowly pointed out that those looking to take these shenanigans seriously beware. We did have many out-and-out champions. Time magazine said the results may be frivolous, but synthetic frivolity on the rampagingly funny order of Little Me appears too rarely on Broadway. John McClane of the Journal American said, if the press agents of Little Me were looking for a quote from me, they can help themselves. Smash musical, sumptuous success, or maybe just Hail Caesar. Hi there, Tom Clark. Well, happy birthday to your grandson, John. He goes on, Sid Caesar did in fact conquer Broadway, and our reviews all in all were of the kind of which hits are made. We had a decent run, he writes, but not what we might have expected after such plaudits. My feeling was that once we got past the Sophisticates of New York, the audiences from across the bridges and tunnels were looking for more heart mixed with their hilarity. I rewrote it and placed the locale in England. The business of Bell being from the wrong side of the tracks seemed more relevant there, since those who weren't of the upper class were all from the wrong side of the anywhere. Harold Hobson, a respected English critic, wrote, it is a true work of art in that it maintains a personal attitude towards life and society without once losing it. It is an attitude of amused mockery of English social institutions and class consciousness with a properly distanced accuracy astonishing in an American show. Now, isn't that amazing? Since it began as a show about America. Neil Simon says, it was shortly after that I decided to become an Anglophile. I started wearing English tweeds and a Burberry raincoat. Maybe that's where I got that from. And he begins to write about his father's health failing and him and his brother Danny. Maybe we'll pick that up. But so even the great Neil Simon thought there were problems with the show Little Me, because it had laughs, but not the heart. And I think he's touched on what is a very important part of what real humor is. I think it has to have heart at some point. Can be scathing and scalding, but it's a remark or two to bring people along on something, a book or a play. I think there has to be heart. Well, what do I know? As we reviewed, I'm no relation to Neil Simon, though we were always pleased that people would sometimes ask. Yes, happy birthday to your John, to your grandson, John. So thanks for being with us tonight on our open book. We have family friends coming here. Yes, Caroline's essay today here on Substack is just, you're so right, Lucy. You gotta have her. I looked up the music in Little Me, the only song that I recognized. Now I'm forgetting what it was. Well, there's really only one hit song from there. No offense to the composer and writer. Yes, Caroline's wonderful essay about the heat that's now gripping France, and yes, certainly where they are, where our place is. And I'm just speaking with them. They're okay. They're battened down. Yeah, have a write about the European aversion to screens next. Hi there, Kathy Kinney. So it's a wonderful essay that she has done. And when I spoke with them just a few minutes ago, they were spraying Daisy with a bottle of water. But it's not pleasant to go out, and it's not pleasant to stay. There's no relief. And she was telling me about a new hospital that's just opened in Brittany that maybe has to be closed down now because all new medical center hospital built in Brittany with all the latest developments has no air conditioning. A hospital. And so sick people there, it must be very torturous. Daisy's dealing with it, but it's rough. It's rough. So there should be some better weather back before they leave. They're getting through it, and I admire them and love them. So yes, Daisy spraying with the water bottle. So thanks for being with us on our open book. I will pass that along, and we will see you later. Should cool down in a few days. Yes, Marianne, that's what the family reports. So we'll see you later. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.